Buy it. Because here's the thing. The daily price of Bitcoin doesn't matter. It's been alive for 10 years. In every year, other than one, 2015, it's made a higher low. The market cap has grown every single year. Every fundamental indicator of Bitcoin, usage, wallets, block size, transaction size, number of transactions, every single one, hash rate, making new highs.
Hey everybody, Matty here with Altcoin Buzz. Happy Saturday. Hope you're having a great weekend so far. We are discussing comments made recently by Mark Yusko. He is of Morgan Creek Capital, who's basically saying, look, buy Bitcoin. It doesn't matter what price it's at right now. It represents something that's more important than whatever price point you nab it at. We'll take a look at that clip. We'll also take a look at Elon Musk, who is in the news, who's had a bit of a weird day on Twitter, actually talking about all kinds of things, but he has brought Bitcoin into the discussion at least. We'll take a look at his latest musings in the social media world. We'll also take a look at JP Morgan and Goldman Sachs. They are once again advising clients not to buy Bitcoin, and it's reminiscent of Jamie Dimon's infamous 2017 comments here, courtesy of CNBC. We also want to remind you guys that the Bitcoin halving is coming up. We are less than 10 days away from the 2020 Bitcoin halving. I think a lot of people are on the edge of their seats. Probably not worth it in my opinion. I think this is, again, a lagging indicator. It may only kick in and filter through the market a month, 2 months, 3 months, 6 months down the road. Nevertheless, we are very close. We'll take a look at what CNBC's Brian Kelly has to say. He's broken down on that show, Fast Money, the idea of the Bitcoin halving and what it's all about. We also want to remind you guys of our cryptocurrency news section on the website, just a little bit of functionality that you may want to familiarize yourself with for your own convenience. So we'll take a look at all those stories. We're going to first start on CoinGecko.com with a look at the market right now. $250.7 billion, down ever so slightly, and things similarly down slightly, very, very modestly since yesterday, about a percentage point or so. Bitcoin under 9K right now, sitting at $8,872 with a dominance of 64.9%. Courtesy now of Dan Cryptid on Twitter here, quoting Mr. Mark Yusko. Buy it every day, because here's the thing. The daily price of Bitcoin doesn't matter. This is so down to the point. And he praises Mr. Mark Yusko for his comments of Morgan Creek Capital. Let's take a look at the link
quickly
here.
Before we go. Bitcoin was under 8,000 earlier today.
Buy it.
Regardless, though, of the drop. If I said to you Bitcoin dropped to 5,000, you'd say buy it.
Buy it. Because here's the thing. The daily price of Bitcoin doesn't matter. It's been alive for 10 years. In every year, other than one, 2015, it's made a higher low. The market cap has grown every single year. Every fundamental indicator of Bitcoin, usage, wallets, block size, transaction size, number of transactions, every single one, hash rate, making new highs. All of the indicators of the network and the network value are rising. The price of any asset fluctuates. Let's take Amazon. Amazon's been a public company for 20 years. In every year, including this year, it's at a double-digit drawdown. The average peak to trough, minus 31%. Twice, minus 90%. When was the right time to sell? Never. Who's owned it since the IPO to today? Jeff and his mom and dad. That's it.
All right. We're going to leave it there, Mark.
All right,
Good to
thanks.
see you. Thank you, Mark Yusko, Morgan Creek Capital.
Outcast.
AKA Outcast.
Now, clearly, this is an older clip. It just so happens that we're currently at similar price levels. I suspect, and it's hard to date because the tweet here is from May 1st, but I suspect that the studio segment was recorded in about September or October or so. That's when we had similar prices, and that's what the chart seemed to indicate. However, Mr. Yusko's advice is certainly just as applicable today as it was back then. Also on Twitter, and kind of switching gears here in a weird way, at Altcoin Buzz, retweeting here Elon Musk, who had the following to say. He was asking how much for some anime Bitcoin. And you know, Elon, he's pretty esoteric with his tweets. If you're not following, I would suggest checking his handle out at Elon Musk on Twitter, of course. So, of course, you know, as you can imagine, a lot of people came out in response to this, and just reading through the comments on its own is pretty interesting. Nobody really knows what he means by this. Some anime girl with the Bitcoin background behind her. We know he's more or less in our camp when it comes to Bitcoin. Bitcoin. He's a supporter of the ideology and the movement, roughly speaking. This was paired with this tweet recently that, again, people are kind of raising their eyebrows about, or at least are looking for more information. Elon says, quote, "I am selling almost all physical possessions, will own no house." And apparently the only caveat, just one stipulation on sale: I own Gene Wilder's house. It cannot be torn down or lose any of its soul. So something's going on with Elon Musk. If he is, for whatever reason, having this existential pivot and is kind of dematerializing his life, it stands to reason that Bitcoin would factor into that. Not really any more news to report at the moment, but that's kind of what's been coming out of him recently. So as always, we'll keep you updated if and when this story develops. On to other news, more corporate news on Bitcoinist.com. JP Morgan and Goldman Sachs are advising clients not to buy Bitcoin. This is the claim that's been made by an industry executive. Advisors at JP Morgan and Goldman Sachs are discouraging clients from purchasing Bitcoin. That's according to a California-based wealth manager. Newly launched digital asset investment management risked losing an institutional client upon the two banks' intervention. And the firm admits that the potential Bitcoin buyer got cold feet right after speaking to his financial consultants. The firm in question here, Digital Asset Investment Management, DAIM, a California-based digital asset wealth manager, alleged that it risked losing a vital client upon the intervention of the two financial moguls, referring to JP Morgan and Goldman Sachs. The firm claimed that it had an institutional player who was ready to invest in Bitcoin, but changed its mind after speaking to his advisors at JP Morgan and Goldman Sachs. Quote, "I have a client who was ready to buy Bitcoin, and after talking to his advisors at JP Morgan and Goldman Sachs, told me he's not interested anymore," explained Adam Pokornicki, partners at DAIM. "I asked what they, and instead of answering, he asked me to explain in one sentence what the benefits are to buying Bitcoin now in terms of proven results." Well, look, you guys can tell by the tone how the rest of this article is going to go. The institutional, and I'm talking about the financial institutional heavyweights, despite the fact that they may be in the private sector, the JP Morgans and the Goldman Sachs of the world, profit based on a certain model, based on a certain infrastructure. It is not in their interest to divest any control that they have over that. They enjoy a pretty secure foothold in this space. And I think even if it is to the benefit of their clients, it's going to be to their detriment to get into this space, the Bitcoin and cryptocurrency space. Maybe they can't squeeze as much money out of it. So that to me basically fuels the decision making in this process. I mean, financial security 101 would suggest that any kind of a diversification in your portfolio is the safest way to move forward with your investments. And I think for anybody with a moderate risk appetite, a little bit of Bitcoin, a little bit of cryptocurrency is probably a good thing to incorporate, even if it's only 1% of your holdings. There's nothing wrong with diversification, and by extension, nothing wrong with diversification into Bitcoin and other cryptos. And if JP Morgan and Goldman Sachs were honest with their clients, that's what they'd be advising, but that doesn't seem to be the case. But of course, this is nothing new. Here's an older article from December of last year. Jamie Dimon's infamous 2017 Bitcoin takedown still serves as a warning as that particular decade, the last one, winds down. JP Morgan employs Jamie Dimon as their CEO, and he had some very nasty things to say. And by the way, allegedly was banning Bitcoin for purchase by not only his clients, it's suggesting otherwise, I should say, but banning Bitcoin purchases by his employees. And there was the allegation that he was stashing it and stockpiling Bitcoin of his own behind the scenes. As I see it, if you're into traditional markets, there's nothing wrong with that. Maybe you can get some good advice out of JP Morgan and Goldman Sachs. If you're into some of these other markets, some of these other sectors that really do clash with the interests of some of these investment banks, there's no reason to take them at their word. They're looking out for themselves and their own interests. And you know what? I can't necessarily blame them for that. But Jamie Dimon, JP Morgan, the Goldman Sachs of the world, these guys are not going to give you the straight talk when it comes to Bitcoin. Don't trust them. Do your own research, do your own homework, do your own thing. But check out this article if you're so inclined, from CNBC, December 2019. We want to talk about the future, however. Bitcoin halving is coming up quickly. In fact, we're just under 10 days away from the event. CNBC, the Fast Money Show, which I referenced earlier, had this tweet on the 1st of May. The halving is coming with only 11 out until a major Bitcoin supply cut. Brian Kelly breaks down where there could be a big breakout ahead of the cryptocurrency. And again, this is more of like a 101, but if you're not necessarily up to speed or you don't understand at a technical level what the Bitcoin halving represents, Brian Kelly does a great job of breaking it down.
Check out Bitcoin surging more than 15% 15% this week. Our very own Crypto Baller says another big breakout could be coming. So, BK, how many days is it till the halving?
It's about 11 days to the halving. And so what that means, what people should know is that, as the whole world is quantitative easing, Bitcoin's about to be quantitative hardening. So they're going to cut the daily supply, or the software is going to cut the daily supply. It doesn't mean that the price of Bitcoin is being cut in half. It just means that the daily supply is being cut in half. You might want to think about it like oil, where all of a sudden in 11 days, half the oil rigs are turned off. And so therefore that supply gets reduced. In the past, this has been a catalyst for very big run-ups. We've had a tremendous run-up coming into this. It's got some wood to chop around 9,000. But I think in the medium to long term, you now have an asset that is going to be more scarce than gold based on the stock-to-flow ratio in an environment where the entire world is printing money.
Why isn't this a sell the news event?
It very well may be. I mean, if you look back at the last two, we've had quite a run-up. If you look back at the last two, it took about 30 to 60 days for this really to filter through the market. So you could have after this, remember, this is how the miners make their money, is by those Bitcoin rewards. Right. So some of the weaker miners might actually have to sell out. But 30 to 60 days from now, we could see a nice run up again.
Good breakdown all around. We can tell, for example, that this is certainly a more recent piece. It reflects a quarantined Brian Kelly, so this is clearly taken from a more recent broadcast. I think he provides some good advice. I mean, a lot of it, we've already discussed on this channel. Obviously, we already knew about, but he makes a good point. Number one, about the fact that it's a lagging indicator. Number two, I would say about the fact that, and this is something that I've been banging on this drum for a while, I think a lot of these miners that are out there that are barely scraping by, or perhaps even, operating at a loss, they're going to have to sell out. And I don't mean that disparagingly or condescendingly, the term sell out, but they're going to have to reassess their situation, maybe tweak their operation. If they can't get up to speed, if they can't turn things around and be profitable with the new block reward halving, I don't know, maybe they're going to have to get another job, but I think it is going to be a squeeze on some of the miners. Things are getting much more competitive out there. So good points all around raised by Brian Kelly. Let us know your thoughts about that in the comments below. Finally, guys, just before signing off for the day, I wanted to remind you that on Altcoin Buzz, of course, you can access our homepage easily enough, but you got to make sure that you're availing yourself of the functionality on the site with these tabs that we've introduced. If ever you're not up to speed on what's happening, maybe you've missed a video or a broadcast, check out the cryptocurrency news section here. The tab is very easy to use, very accessible, and it highlights everything that's been going on. Just wanted to mention that in passing. But that's about it for today, everybody. Do be sure you're following us on all the regular social media channels and keep checking back into altcoinbuzz.io for all the latest. Go ahead, like, subscribe, share, and hit the bell to receive notifications, of course, if you've enjoyed today's video. Have a wonderful Saturday, everybody. Best of luck if you choose to invest. And as always, we do hope to see you again soon in our next video. Take care.